Hello, my name is ScienceBeard, and I am expanding on a theme here a little bit. So if you're interested and you want a conspiracy, I've got two for you. So the first conspiracy is left-wing teachers indoctrinating children versus pharma capitalists exploiting their position. So these are two well-known tropes, I think, by now, and I'm going to talk you through them and say what I think. All teachers left-wing socialists hell-bent on the destruction of society as we know it, or is it a moral panic with no basis? Are pupils not allowed to think for themselves? Are overbearing teachers punishing free thinking in schools? Well, if you have taught at all, you know that you find political views in teaching as rarely as in real life. Many people are just not happy to talk about politics for an extended time. Teachers are people, so this is probably true. I say probably because although I know a lot of teachers, I only know a vanishingly small number. However, even at party conferences, people talking about politics are usually complaining about things which most people would agree with. People should not be discriminated against, life should be fairer than it is, and so forth. Let's take a little dive into the extremes of what teaching unions tell teachers. Let's have a look at the NEU's program for their COVID-19 cancelled conference. On page 2, we can see that motions are written by the leadership and foisted onto the membership. Sarcasm this early on? Well, of course, it's me. Motions are submitted, in fact, by teachers and backed up by teachers. If they reach conference level, amendments can be submitted, up to 6. And then there's a lot of procedural stuff which you can dive into if you like, link in the description. I will just say that this is a highly democratic process, and normally objections and so on are heard, no sarcasm. Point 22 lists how highly circumspect people are of emergency anything. If there is an emergency motion, this is not a get out of jail card for the leadership that it appears to be for the current government with its emergency powers. So then we get on to the actual motions. The first few motions tend to be procedural and about the previous conference. So motion 6 is where the actual thing starts, and it starts with climate change, which is based on the widespread scientific consensus that there is an emergency here and that we should acknowledge this. A nice touch is the recognition of the student climate strikes in Britain. Given that schools are tasked with giving students a voice and listening to their students, this is not something the NEU has endorsed or condemned, of course, but rather a consequence of a popular movement of the day. Whether you think that climate change is within the remit of a teaching union or not is beside the point. They are, as a body, responsible for their membership, and they are representing what their membership's intent is. Arguably, the fate of the planet threatened by a known process should be a priority. However, they are also only committed to working and cooperating with like-minded organizations and groups, not to instruct teachers to indoctrinate pupils. Whenever climate change is discussed in lessons, it is within the curriculum, which is not decided by schools or teachers, but by the exam board, who are under observation by the government through Ofqual and the DfE. However, there is evidence that pupils are engaged with this. In a survey, 91% of pupils said more should be taught. So there's interest here, and the perception of pupils is that not enough is being taught. I can second that because I struggled to get more than a lesson or two out of it. I had other stuff to teach. Moving on to motion 7. So there's a few amendments there. Workload. And we are back to teachers moaning. And to be fair, I've worked more than 49.5 hours a week, and being available online 24/7 and doing ineffective bookmarking and other admin have got me to moan. And workload has been a concern for the last 20 years, and not very much has changed. So what? Well, we have the youngest group of teachers in the developed world. Teachers leave, some teachers move abroad, many teachers don't last more than 5 years, and so forth. I've talked about this before, links in a different video. Many leave citing workload as a reason. Teachers quitting is an existential threat to the profession. So I'm certain that this should be of interest to people who want state education to continue. And this spans Labour and Conservative governments and is independent of virtually any politics. Simple. If you haven't got enough well-qualified, experienced teachers who feel valued, state education suffers. Motion 8. Motion 8 is here somewhere. This is about how pay and condition leads to high staff wastage. Lovely way to put it. And that we need a national agreement for teachers. Motion 9 is about mental health in education, and particularly about adults in education. There's a lot of concern about students and pupils already. That's pretty uncontroversial. Motion 10 is a call to enforce existing laws with regards to people working for agencies. There's a lot of concern about students. Motion 10 is a call to enforce existing law, which is at times evaded by agencies by educating workers about their rights. So I think that's pretty uncontroversial. It's existing laws being enforced or aiming to be enforced, and people being educated about them. Motion 11 is about teacher and support staff pensions and the age at which teachers become eligible for them. Now, given that a lot of the old guard of teachers retired pretty much as quickly as they could because the new pension age came in, and the new pension age is 68, I haven't talked to a lot of people who think that they can still teach when they're 68 and have some sort of connection with the students. 65 is pushing it, but I think every single year after that is going to be difficult. So motion 12. Poverty and disadvantage is about the recognition that some areas in Britain are disadvantaged and that pupils from those areas are achieving less well than they should be. Some areas of concern are addressed, for example that Ofsted is criticising schools hanging on to the wrong type of staff when they already have problems recruiting and retaining any staff. And I've done a video about that as well somewhere. Motion 13 is about too many exclusions of some groups and how it impacts the life chances of students. Motion 14 is about how the Windrush scandal was bad. And that the hostile environment that EU parents face is detrimental to their children's education. And then there is an international section which I'm going to skip now. But essentially, the question remains: are teachers and their unions wildly socialist? Do they want to abolish capitalism? If the answer is yes, you don't actually know what socialism is, do you? No. The answer is no. Should we have a privatized education system which operates like the football leagues, where location and money determine what sort of education you get? Arguably, we already have that. Or should schools attempt to level the playing field at least a little bit? And let's not kid ourselves that this is but a minor effect, if any, by providing a quality education to anyone, regardless of where they live or who they are or how much money their parents have got. And now let's have a little look at capitalism can work. So that's my first conspiracy theory about teachers being socialists. Okay, so now let's have a little look at how capitalism can work. Katie Porter, a US politician from the House of Representatives, took various CEOs to task over the massively inflated prices of life-saving medications and the role that the CEOs and other leaders played in this. I would heartily recommend you watch some of them. Find them on YouTube. It's Katie Porter taking on CEOs of pharma companies. It's well worth a watch. They are a treat in how to question and hold accountable people in authority of their company, wielding significant power over the lives of citizens in the US without ever having been elected and being paid rather handsomely at the same time. Now, you will say that can't happen in the UK, can it? Well, there is an example here from the BBC. Let me just find that. Bum, bum, bum. There we go. Colluding drug firms cost the NHS millions of pounds. It's from the 23rd of May 2019. Let me just tell you what happened. 4 pharmaceutical companies which made the same drug, prochlorperazine, colluded to artificially restrict the supply of said drug and paid each other shares of the profit while raising the price for the NHS by up to 700%. Okay, now you can say that this is not capitalism because the companies committed a crime doing it, but here's the thing. People who advocate capitalism and free markets tend to not want oversight either. So how is it that we're going to catch them? This price fixing essentially went on from 2013 to 2018, and it takes years to make a case. So maybe this is a one-off, right? On March the 6th, 2019, PR Week reported that Ord Mackenzie and Waymade may have broken the law by fixing the price of a life-saving medication, hydrocortisone. A familiar story. Rising costs of the same medication to the NHS and competition did not work here to reduce the price. In fact, the obvious competitors appear to have come to a less labour-intensive gentleman's agreement, which meant they did not have to compete, but both profited. Even if Waymade and Ord Mackenzie are found innocent here, it still means that competition does not always work to reduce prices, and that if there is no control in place, companies will award themselves whatever they see fit. And here's how it all started. In 2016, when Ord Mackenzie and its successor Accord UK were still known as Actavis UK and Concordia, which then turned into Amco and then Advanced Pharma, at worst they colluded and did something illegal, which free market advocates often say shouldn't be illegal, and at best this means that competition does not work to reduce prices. And here is how it all started in 2016, when Ord Mackenzie and its successor Accord UK were still known as Actavis UK and Concordia, which then turned into Amco and then Advanced Pharma, colluded and did something illegal, which free market advocates often say shouldn't be legal, and at best it means that competition does not work to reduce prices. So, which left-wing socialist entity is trying to put a stop to it? That's right, the government. With its propaganda tool, the Competition and Markets Authority. Yes, that was sarcasm again. And you can probably see that a conservative government just relishes the opportunity to wrap naughty companies over the knuckles. Yes, also sarcasm. So what happened in the Actavis UK and Concordia case? As I said, inquiries take years. This one is reasonably aged, 2016. But before we look at the case, just note this. In December 2016, the CMA fined the pharmaceutical suppliers Pfizer and Flynn Pharma a total of nearly £90 million for charging excessive prices for the anti-epilepsy drug phenytoin sodium, after that drug was also debranded. In February 2016, the CMA fined a number of pharmaceutical companies a total of £45 million for anti-competitive pay-for-delay agreements and conduct in relation to the supply of the antidepressant drug paroxetine. The CMA has two other ongoing investigations into the pharmaceutical sector. So, not a lot going on there then. Not widespread at all. Back to the case. There's a nice timeline here. And in February 2020, there were more objections issued. So, this started in April 2016. The behavior started before then and had gone on for years, costing the NHS, i.e. the taxpayer, however many millions. Because whether or not anything illegal had gone on, the prices for the medications went up beyond the normal inflationary rises and shoveled a lot of profits into the company's coffers. In fact, so much time has passed that at least the names of the companies involved have changed at least 3 times as well. And I'm no lawyer, but the CMA continues to take the provisional view that liability for Ord Mackenzie's alleged infringements is attributable to its economic successor Accord UK, previously known as Actavis UK, and that liability is attributable to Allergen plc as the former parent company of Ord Mackenzie and Actavis UK, to Synven as the former parent company of Advanced Pharma, and to Accord Pharmaceuticals and Intas as the current parent company of Accord UK. They would only be liable for their respective periods of ownership. Good luck with that. The ball is now in the court of the companies, and they're not going to rush to fill in the paperwork, are they? So which is more likely? That teachers are indoctrinating pupils, or that capitalist companies making medication are trying to rip off the state by any means necessary and possible, even allowable? This is of course a fine example of a false dichotomy. Both could be true, but here's the thing. Most people understand what teachers are and what schools are and maybe even what they do. Everybody knows a good and a terrible teacher. Everybody can have an opinion on schools and unions despite not really appreciating the framework and rules they have to work to. And anti-competitive behavior, well, it's what we expect from Big Pharma, right? It's boring and nobody can really see that tax money being converted into profits and payouts for CEOs and shareholders, while everybody knows that teachers are lazy and overpaid, despite the fact that fewer and fewer people recommend it as a career and are quitting the profession. On top of that, schools will just continue, won't they? There are always teachers to hand. Nobody can see a crisis. My point is this. Instead of worrying about whether there are lizards running the world or whether vaccinations come with tagging chips, which is no on both accounts, maybe worry about how it appears that poverty and insecurity is on the increase And we are all asked to tighten our belts, but the wealth divide is deepening. This is the background in front of which schools need to be upbeat and insist that pupils and students can achieve what they want as long as they work hard enough, as if somehow magically your place of birth has no impact on your achievement. If some people still benefited from slavery in 2015, not you or me of course, but the descendants of slave owners, if billionaires see their wealth increase in times when ordinary people may lose their jobs and homes, you don't have to be a socialist or communist to find that concerning. I hope you enjoyed this little video of mine, this little rant, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye.